Calling in from the Windy City, it's time for JW Fusion with your hosts, James and Wendy B.
Welcome to this week's broadcast of JW Fusion. I'm your co-host, J.H. Carpenter Barnes, and I'm here with the awesome, the brilliant, and magnificent Wendy B.
Hello, darling.
How are you, my love?
I'm wonderful. I am excited about this guest.
Are you really?
Yes.
Are you really excited?
Yes.
Truly excited?
Truly excited to meet this beautiful and
Well,
talented
I shall
woman.
allow you to introduce her.
Well, we have here best-selling author, family friend even,
Yes.
my new best friend. This is Aria Craig. Welcome to the show.
Craig. Welcome to the show, Aria.
That's such an extraordinary introduction. I appreciate it. Thank
For an
you.
extraordinary woman. You are right. You are an author, and you have written about single motherhood.
I have.
So tell us about how this came about.
Well, my son now is 20.
You do not have a 20-year-old.
I have a 20-year-old.
See, this woman.
I know,
She's
right?
gonna say 10.
I have
man.
a 20-year-old. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And since he was a toddler, I always received compliments on how I raised my son and on his behavior, his composure, his just entire persona and existence. So I just decided maybe about 5 or 6 years ago to write a book because someone from my church, my congregation, said that you could really help some single parents out there because of how you raise your son. My son is Matthew. Raise your son.
I have a Matthew too.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, so I just got a lot of compliments, and they told me you should go for it because you can really be of service to others. So that's what I did. I started the book.
Wow. How long did it take you to write it?
That one maybe about a month and a half because I had some really strong components that I wanted to make sure I incorporated that was going to be able to serve the audience.
Like components like what?
Like, for instance, talking about sex, drugs, and bullying, co-parenting. I have a section in there about blended families because at that point I was I was a stepmother. I was part of a blended family household.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what was it about your upbringing or your experience that allowed you to be the parent that people complimented so much?
It was a mixture of my upbringing, what I went through with my single mom,
Okay.
and my dad not being available. He wasn't a part of my life until I turned 34.
Wow.
So learning what
That's a whole nother book.
That's a whole nother book. So learning what to do, what not to do in this generation, what may work a little bit better from what we were taught and how we were raised.
Yeah.
Those were pretty much my strong points and my strengths in how I decided to raise my son.
Can we talk about that for a minute? The
Yeah.
things that we grew up with that weren't beneficial to the people that we grew up to be.
Well, it's interesting because I was brought up where you were told, go sit down, shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were asking questions, you were nicknamed. They used to call me Nosemo.
What?
They called me Nosemo. My father started that
You're a bit inquisitive, I take
because
it?
I was nosy.
Okay.
I wanted to know.
Yeah.
I was very smart. I was extremely bright.
Yeah.
In first grade, I was so smart they wanted to put me in third grade.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Well, I
not
started-
just jump 2 grades.
Well, see what happened? I started reading before I started school. Remember I told you about
Yeah,
the
the
books
books.
that Dr. Nyko gave my
Yeah.
mother. I had a huge box of books, and I started reading before I started school. So when I got to school, I could read
You're
in
already-
kindergarten.
Yeah.
And so as a consequence, my comprehension was ahead of the other children. So they said, wow, this kid needs to be in a higher grade. They were going to put me in third grade. But because I had pneumonia as a baby, I was prone to get colds a lot. And that particular year, I had several colds. And then you get the measles, the mumps, the chicken pox,
See.
all of that.
Wow.
Wow. And so I missed a lot of school.
Yeah.
So actually, if I hadn't been as smart as I was, I probably would have been held back. But because of that, but anyway, what I'm getting at is that the way I raised my kids was different. I raised my kids in a Christian environment. We went to church together. We the weekends we would go to the drive-in, to the movies. We go to the theaters. We go to the museum. We go to the zoo. We go somewhere every weekend. So we hung out a lot. And for a period of time, I was a single parent with James and Margaret.
And that's something that people don't talk about a lot, the single fathers
Yeah,
that are
I
out
was
there.
I was a single parent for a while. And, I mean, to this day, my son, he just turned 40 today.
Happy birthday
My son-
to
Yeah,
you.
my son turned 40 today, and they were on this show a couple weeks back, and he still remembers how I never broke my word to him. If I promised him something, I
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
If I said I'm going to get you this, I'm going to get you this.
Yeah.
If I said I'm going to punish you, I'm going to get you for this, I got him. You know, and the same thing with Margaret. And so they relied on what I said. I grew up, I couldn't rely on anything my father said. Now, my father was a very charismatic man, very, very, really handsome guy, really impactful, you know, and everybody was crazy about him. But he was not a great father because it was all about him. And the thing I learned as a parent, it's not about you.
Right.
Very little of it is about you. And so in your situation, I know that's one of the first lessons you realize. It's not about what Aria wants. It's about what's best for the kids.
You actually brought up two great points. And I don't want to forget the second point when you mentioned the word punish. But I'm going to circle back to that one. When we were growing up, one of the things that was very instrumental for myself and my two siblings, my older sister and my younger brother, my aunt during the summer used to take us to the library, and she made us check out library books during the summer and write book reports.
Okay.
Nice.
She made us read the newspaper and write a paragraph summary about what the article,
Yeah.
to summarize the article. And
Yeah.
she would go through, she would read the article, then she would read our paper on the article, which is only a paragraph long.
Sure.
But with our book reports, they had to be at least 3 pages long. And we did this during the summer. We would still be able to go out and play, jump double dutch, hopscotch, ride our bikes. But she wanted to make sure that, you know, when you're young and you're in school, you're not going to retain some of the things that you just learned
Right,
once the
right.
school year is over. So she wanted to make sure that we continued with our learning process.
Sure.
Our
Yeah.
minds
That
were
makes
still
sense. That makes
focused
sense.
and functioning, and
Yeah.
that we were utilizing those skills.
And those are life skills as well,
Yes,
because you're not only
absolutely.
just reading something, you're reading
Yeah.
it and
Absolutely.
disseminating the information that you read. You're
That-
able
absolutely.
to say what I've read, and that's a life lesson.
She kept
so that
you
was
guys.
smart.
She kept you guys
Yes.
cognitively engaged.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I know. For me as a kid, I get out of school, my mind disconnects from anything about school. You know. But what was the second thing you said?
Now, in terms of punishment, when I was younger, I was always on punishment.
No, you was
Always
one of
on
them
punishment.
kids.
Because
Okay.
I was a child that I was very vocal. I was very opinionated, and I was raised like, you know, this generation.
Yeah.
You don't have an opinion. It's like,
No,
do what
you
I
don't.
say.
Right.
You don't.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Seen and not heard.
So when I had my son, and as he was growing, I gave him the opportunity, as long as he didn't overstep a boundary and
Right.
disrespect.
The disrespect, exactly.
I gave him the opportunity to speak his mind on certain subjects, and he's the same way until this day.
Yeah.
But as I got older, I realized by us being African Americans, I started using the word grounded instead of punishment.
Okay.
That was important. When he was a sophomore, I believe, in high school, he had a teacher, and I actually liked her, but you know, we have some teachers that are different from our culture that really don't understand diversity. And he had that experience actually in elementary school also. But this particular situation was when he was a sophomore, and he and his friend was a senior. So, you know, seniors are goofy. They're just ready to graduate. They're thinking about prom,
Yeah.
and, you know, they're just
Yeah,
ready to get out of
yeah.
there.
They think
Yeah.
they're grown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was an art class. My son is very, very into art and film and things of that sort.
Do we have the same
So-
child?
I know. That's Matthew.
Confused. I was there when he was. Okay, go ahead.
So they were talking, and she felt like they were being disruptive. He was just basically expressing his opinion about
Yeah.
something that he was passionate about. So the way that they have things in school, like the policies in schools nowadays, they will call a security guard in.
Oh, wow.
And so
Oh,
that's
wow.
what she did, because she felt he was being disruptive, and he was just expressing. He didn't even think he was doing something wrong.
Right.
So I
because of his
spoke with her,
upbringing.
right? And I spoke with her, and I told her, I said, "Listen, he's a dark-skinned African American male, and I know, and I get what you're trying to do, and I respect it. And I'll make sure I speak with him about that to tone it back a little bit because he has to allow, the teacher is still his authority figure.
Right.
However, there was a disconnect from what she was perceiving and what he was perceiving. And when you have a security guard that's coming in, that's already, that's
takes it
a
up a level.
psychological thing that we're already inducing into our children. So when I explained it to her, she got it. They didn't have any more
that was
issues.
good then.
But
That was
that's the term punishment that I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's that psychological understanding and definition of the word. So I didn't use punishment. I used grounded.
Okay.
And that's
So,
good
yeah.
that a lot of times we don't think about the words that we use. Like I never said shut up. I hate that phrase.
Yeah.
Shut up. I would say hush, be quiet, bite my tongue if that really wanted, like I just need you to shut up. But I've never said shut up to Matthew.
Well, I know with my son and my daughter, with James, I don't know if I ever spanked him. I think I did once. He'd done something. Because him and his sister would get into it.
Yeah.
But Margaret, on the other hand, she is an April 26th baby, and her head is as tough as it gets. She's sweet as she can be, just as nice. Of course, Daddy. I'll be happy to. And she's going to do exactly what she want to do. And will smile.
Yeah.
And so I had to get her. And get on her. I said, look, you got to stop. You have to get on her case. They weren't belligerent. My kids I've never heard my kids use profanity because Margaret's 45, Jimmy's 40. Even as adults, I've never heard them use profanity. And, but as kids growing up, it was because of the example I set for one.
Right.
The life I lived in front of them, because when I was single, I didn't date. I'd have women coming in and out of the house. I used to hear guys talk about. I knew another guy that was a single parent, and he used to boast about how many women was coming in and out of his house.
Oh,
and I was thinking, man, that's a bad example for your son to see because he's gonna feel that's normalcy.
Yeah.
Right.
And my son, right now to this day, is an amazing husband and father because of the example that
he really
saw,
is.
that he was raised seeing with me. I didn't have that example. I didn't know how a man was supposed to be in a family situation, how to be a husband, how to be a father, and so I watched my stepfather, who had a drinking problem. So he had a good work ethic. So I learned a work ethic from him. But I had to learn how to be a father when I became a believer.
Wow.
When God came into my life, that's what shifted it for me. And thank God my kids were very, very small. I mean, Jimmy was like, I think 3, and Margaret was like a little bit older. But they both benefited from that because they had a different man as their image now. They didn't have the old me, they had a new me. And I would say to anybody, male or female, in a 2-parent household, single-parent household, allow God to be your model. Allow the example you see in Scripture to be your model of how a father or as a parent you should be. The expectations. Yes, you do have to correct. Yes, you do have to ground. You do have to take things away. You have to say, okay, you can't go here, you can't do that. Because if you don't, they will go as far as you let the rope go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that was that was great
That was good.
because words mean a lot.
Yes. Yeah, very powerful.
Very
Right.
powerful.
Yes.
And that's the word I never heard in my neighborhood.
What?
Grounded.
Grounded.
You saw I heard it on the Brady Bunch.
Yeah. You heard it on the Brady Bunch or the Beaver.
Yeah. You
I heard
really
it with
do.
other cultures on
Right,
TV.
exactly.
Yeah.
You do, but then when you start to process and realize that actually makes sense. If you think about the word grounded, you're kind of just making them understand that we have to guide you. This is a guiding and putting you back on a level to where you need to understand from the mistakes that you just made, not necessarily being punished.
Being punished is a totally different word. It has a totally different spirit
Connotation.
as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've
You
heard-
have 2 books though.
I have, yeah,
What's
several.
the other one? What's
She
the other
got,
book?
I mean, she got 2 volumes of Single Mother.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
working on the
okay.
third one, yeah.
Yeah, so as a single mother, I know, well, I had 2 special needs kids, but as a lot of mothers, I didn't plan on being a single mother. And so when I became one, I had to deal with the anger and the wounds from the divorce and, you know, our marriage not working out. But then I'm still trying to be a mother. So I think a lot of single parents even have that issue, like, I didn't plan on doing this by myself. Now I have a whole attitude, but I'm trying to get, you know, get past that to raise these children in a way that they should go. And I know I tried everything with my Matthew, God help me. He's beautiful now. He's 18. He's studying film. It's funny you said that. He's studying
Yeah.
film in college.
Wow,
But
sweet.
he is a May 10th
Okay.
child. So the stubbornness, the hard-headedness, they just want to keep pushing the envelope. But I
Yep.
still try to give him that safe place to just speak his mind.
Right.
Again, with respect, still abiding by my rules. But tell me, why'd you do that? Why'd you get mad? You know, just have that conversation. And even now, it's funny. He will hang out with me. I'm like, like for his 18th birthday, I'm like, okay, what you want to do? I know you want to be with your. He's like, let's do something. I'm like, yo, the 2 of us?
Yeah.
He said, yeah. So that leads me to believe I did something right.
Yes.
None of us are perfect.
Right.
But what kind of mother, or what are you trying to impart to the single mother in these 2 volumes, soon to be 3 in your books?
Well, the first volume is more so on guiding, like more so like a coaching mechanism for single moms when it comes to co-parenting and when they do eventually get married, being in that blended family household, because that's a different dynamic in its own, because you have other factors at play.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's more getting past the anger, making better decisions now that
Yeah.
we're a single mother. So that, because if it's hard enough the first time, it's going to be hard the next time around. But that's just for those of us like myself. I wasn't married when I had my son.
Okay.
Okay.
So, but there is still that anger and that hurt and that pain that you endure when you're divorced. Because I'm now forcibly divorced. Been divorced since March.
Wow.
It's that anger that you have that you're trying to heal from, so that you're not
Right.
bitter and angry. You don't want to be bitter and angry to where you have this energy around anyone else, because that can permeate into your professional life as well.
Yeah.
But you want to make sure that with people that you encounter later on, if God blesses you to have another a helpmeet, though actually if it was you were married the first time, that probably wasn't the person that you were supposed to be with.
Yeah.
And that's an entire different
Another
conversation
book,
from
girl,
a
write it
spiritual
down.
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
a spiritual perspective.
Sure.
But when I have a belief that you do divorce for certain reasons, obviously. But if you are blessed to be in a position to where you do find someone who fits those gaps and they help you with your strengths and your weaknesses, then there's always that extraness that you have to deal with from bringing your kids and even if they're older, getting them used to you dating and being with someone.
Yeah.
But this is more so of a coaching tool,
Okay.
a coaching mechanism. When you were talking about Matthew and him being in film, everybody learns different. So
Yeah.
when we were younger, we had the same platform on how we
that
were
cookie
taught.
cutter education.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And everybody processes things different. My son is very much into film. Like, he talks about the score of the film, the character development.
Ooh, they need
He's
to
highly
meet,
into
babe.
Avatar: The
They-
Last Airbender. Like, he met Michael DiMartino. So he's just very, very into anything that has to do with film and animation.
Yeah. Okay.
So his upbringing, when he's younger, of course, his brain is not going to really. When he was younger, and I was like you, I had him reading novels. Like, he was reading The
Yeah.
Hunger Games on the plane in the 3rd grade.
Yeah.
So I had him reading those novels because that's what my aunt did with us growing up. And I also taught him algebra because I'm very good with math. I think with both sides
God
of my
bless
brain.
you for that,
so I
girl. God bless you.
so I'm very good with
Got
math.
a headache just hearing you say algebra.
So he's good with math,
Good.
but then when he got to be, I noticed around 7th and 8th grade, he was starting to get disconnected from it.
Okay.
So his mind was already starting to shift with where he was going to develop as he got older
Yeah.
to the whatever career option or field he was going to go into, which was
Yeah.
it's film. creative. You have to be very creative
Yes.
and think with the other side of your brain, not the analytical side, but the
Right.
artistic side of your brain
Right.
when it comes to that field.
Yeah.
So I had to learn that. I had to
Yeah,
learn.
and you have to let them go in the direction that they
Exactly.
seem to be leaning
Exactly.
towards. Because I, to take my Matthew to the movies is a Jesus. Wasn't that a good movie? I don't know, because the cinematography of the score, and I'm like, what? I
Yeah.
just like the action.
Yeah.
But he's
Exactly.
going to dissect it like your Matthew.
Yeah.
He's
Yes.
directed us to some stuff. I'm
Yeah.
like, what did he see?
You got to
is
see this
not-
because the cinematography of this movie and the score and the way
And they
it was
could talk
written
for hours
forever
about
the
it,
movies.
and
yeah.
so passionate about
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And then when you understand whatever it is they were trying to convey, then they light up like,
They
yeah,
light up
now they
like,
think,
yeah.
'cause, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there's a connection.
That's true.
But even with the traditional upbringing like we had, that's not something that you did.
Right.
You grow up, you get a job, period.
Right.
But I try to, and I told him the blessing he had because I've been an entrepreneur for 24 years. And his dad works a traditional job. And I said, there's nothing wrong with either one.
Right.
One is not better than the other, but you get a nice scope of what they look like. And
Right.
Yeah.
my Matthew is never going to be at a 9 to 5. He won't last. He
That's
can't be
mine.
put in that box. He's
Right.
creative like yours.
And you know what else too? There's something that popped into my head just now. The era I grew up in, my parents weren't about thriving; they were about surviving. So you didn't have the space to talk about being creative or creativity or my vision for life or my passion.
Yeah.
Or I have a vision to build and to accomplish and to launch. These are terms that have come about in the last 20 years or so. And they've become very mainstream
Yep.
to become entrepreneurial. Well, back then it was about get a job.
Right.
You got to survive.
Right.
Because
Right.
the mindset on my street, if you made it from January 1st to February 1st and you paid your rent on time, you
Yeah.
bought groceries, light bill,
Yeah.
gas bill, telephone bills paid, you were successful. And that's about as far as the thinking went. I know where I grew up, I call it the aid.
Him and his the aid. But
It
I'm
was-
not sure about it being the era, babe, because you and I, of course, grew up in different eras, but my mom was the same. She's just trying to get through the day, through the month.
But she
have more
that was
month.
stamped on her from where
Right,
she
but
grew
it's
up.
the environment that we grew up in, and I would
Yeah.
say that a lot of people who live in the inner city or in
Right.
or less affluent areas,
lower income areas.
lower income areas,
Yeah.
they have that. Listen, I'm trying to survive.
Yeah, trying to make it.
But the beauty of, there's a lot of bad things that you see with media, but the beauty of media is that it exposes our children to a bigger dream.
Yes.
Like I grew up, the Brady Bunch was like the dream. You had the station wagon with the wood
Yeah,
paneling,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Dog.
They had the dog. You had the kids had their own bathroom. Like what? So that was
Had a
our
maid.
dream. But now I mean, I need an Alice still today if I could just. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But the media allows our children to have a bigger thinking, like for me, I was thankful to learn how to type at a young age. So that
Yeah.
put me into corporate, which exposed me to a number of people and a variety of nationalities. Like I tried carrot cake and I'm like, I don't want no carrots and no cake. And they were like, I'm picturing an orange cake. I'm
Yeah.
from the inner city. I don't know nothing
Yeah.
about this. And they
Yeah.
handed it to me, it looks like a regular cake. And I'm like, what the? When do you
But you-
taste it? Oh, it's good.
Yeah.
But just being around a different environment that I grew up with allowed me to think outside of the box that I grew up in.
I'll tell you something else too. A huge element is all of the books I read at a huge box of books. Almost, it was half my height. I wasn't very big, but it was a big box. Not one of those books had a book with somebody that looked like me.
Oh, of course not. Yeah.
So
Same.
the thing, like with you and Evan and Daryl, you guys are writing books. People from C-Band are writing books based on characters that look like us,
Yeah.
like African American children.
Yeah.
And so when you see that, because I grew up with a certain mindset about things because I never saw anyone that looked like me with great success. Because there wasn't much taught on Black history during
Right.
Black History Month. There was 28 days. It wasn't 28 days because it was only a few days, in the month. So those I didn't really get an understanding of what of who I was, of where I came from, the good parts, because everything I saw was a negative image. You know,
Yeah.
we watched Tarzan movies, and the natives were always depicted as inferior to this European man who grew up with the apes. Although he spoke their language and he defended the land, there was a superiority that he possessed that they didn't. So I didn't see someone who was dark-skinned, brown-skinned, or even light brown-skinned who had authority and strength and dignity, you know. And so when you have books like this and other books like along this line, it impacts that child on a different level, as well as, like you're saying, the media now is so much more cosmopolitan now.
Yeah.
It's not as segregated, or you got one group over here, you got Asians over here, you got Latinos over here, you got African Americans over here, you got Caucasians over here. There's more of a blending of the culture now. And there's nothing nobody can do about that.
Right. It's
Because
yeah.
it's going to happen. It's happening.
It's happening. Yeah.
You see it a lot on television commercials.
I know.
Yes.
You see the
Yes.
interracial couples.
Yes,
You
I
see that a lot now.
and I'm seeing a lot of us, which I love,
Yeah.
rocking our natural hair. I
Yeah.
cannot
Natural
get
hair,
enough
yeah.
of that. I love it.
And you,
You know
see
what
us
it-
in different sizes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
We don't see the little stick people.
I know. You have real look, because we'll
You
be
have
watching
real
movies.
Yeah.
I said, babe, look, she thick.
Yeah. And
You
I
know,
love that.
There was a time
Yeah.
you didn't
Yeah,
see
absolutely.
that. You didn't see
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
And I believe it's attributed to open-minded people being in control of these agencies. Because there was a time when the ad agencies were controlled by a very small group of narrow-minded people. Now it's not like that. You have people who are more open-minded. You have people who are more forward-thinking,
Yeah.
who are more open-hearted and more sensitive, and being realistic about the world we live in.
Right. Right.
And I believe that when you grow up seeing that, like Matthew, he has no concept of racism.
He doesn't.
He has no
Mine
concept.
neither, because he was raised, and he went to school, and our church was very diverse.
Yeah. Same.
So his inner core circle of friends very
It varies,
diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, same
Very.
thing. And
But that's
so-
such a good thing. And
It is
I
awesome.
It is.
I often got criticized as Matthew was growing up because he wasn't black enough. He didn't sound black enough. You know, you need to take him to the hood. And I was like, do you hear what you're saying?
Right.
A good mother in the hood is seeking for her children to be better, to have a better
Yes,
life.
yes.
But now you're telling me because I was fortunate enough to not be in the hood anymore, now my child is inferior.
Right.
Really? I said, you know, he's going to be fine.
Right.
He's going to get along better in the world because he has grown up with the world. He has gone to school, like you said, in church with the world.
he's lived in the world he's going
Yeah.
to have to work in.
Anyway,
Exactly.
he has to move and
Yeah.
groove in it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he can now.
Yeah, because I mean, when I was in college, I dropped out of college. I was at DePaul. I dropped out my senior year. I decided I wanted to be a musician.
Velma is still mad at you about
Yeah, my mother
that.
had a fit.
Yeah.
I could hear her voice piercing
Yeah.
the airwaves now.
Yeah,
But I
she's
decided I
mad.
wanted to do music, and where I worked, the people there, I asked the lady one night. Well, she was from the South, and I said, "Do you think there are more African Americans or more blacks in the United States or more Caucasians?" She said, "More blacks." So
That was her world.
I said, "You think blacks are the majority?" She said, "Oh yeah, definitely."
Yeah.
But a lot of people thought that because their world was so small. You can't. How can you thrive in a world where you don't have an actual accurate view of the world you live in?
Yeah.
You can't.
You don't know
You're
until
living
you
in
know.
you're living in a bubble.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But kids now, it's so vital. Like the books you're writing, I believe your influence is going to expand beyond what.
I received that.
Yeah.
Glory to His holy and righteous
It's,
Because-
these are important. These are
Amen.
important
Because
topics.
the thing is, the divorce rate is so high right now. It's
Yeah, I was
just-
about to say, when we come back from this break, I want to just dive into the blended
Yes,
family
yes,
aspect of your
we got
books,
to.
since
We
we're
got
a
to.
blended family. you know.
Okay.
Yeah, we are, and it's more common than uncommon.
Yeah.
They said if
Oh,
it's
yeah.
25 marriages, 23 end in divorce now.
Yeah.
23 out of 25. That's
We're
a
coming
lot.
up on a break, babe.
We'll be
We gotta
right
come
back after this message with our awesome guest, Aria Craig. We'll be right back.
This book is the story of Jameson Harold Donovan, who lives in the city of Sussex Falls. Feeling trapped in his dysfunctional marriage to his wife and a stranger to his own children, thoughts of suicide dominate his waking hours. Jameson discovers he was selected before birth by the Almighty to receive quasi-angelic abilities. Between the ticks of the clock. You're listening to JW Fusion with your hosts, James and Wendy B.
And we're back with the awesome Aria Craig, AAC.
I am loving
Oh,
this
yeah.
conversation.
Thank
This is
you.
such a good conversation.
It really
to have.
is, and it's relevant.
Yeah.
But you wanted to dive into the blended family.
Yeah, because we're a blended family,
We are.
babe.
We are very
And
blended.
it's funny, as a single mom, I was very careful about who I dated and who I brought around the kids. And I was in a relationship prior to James where I didn't see, I don't know if it's fairness, like an even amount of attention given to each of my children.
Mm-hmm.
And I paid attention to that. I was like, see, this is not going, it's actually easy to love my special needs children.
Mm-hmm.
They just draw that out of you. Matthew is going to challenge you every step of the way. And they didn't seem to click. And so I said, I can't have this.
Right.
Because he's already in a married environment where we live. And he has a single black mother. And he's in the middle of these two special kids. I can't bring somebody in who doesn't acknowledge his importance, who doesn't celebrate his talent and his beauty. So then I meet James, and in like day one, they click. I'm like, wait, what? Matthew don't like nobody. You know, how old is he? He's like 12 at the time.
He was
right?
12,
He's
yeah.
12 at the time. So he's not trying to be bothered with anybody, but they clicked. And what I noticed is that James listened to him. They had a conversation. He didn't just necessarily bark orders and that's what drew me to him. Like I said, Paige and Christian gonna get you whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Matthew is the one that's the test, and that's why I knew he was the one. So you help people in the blended family arena. What do you do to help them?
Well, actually, it's more so with the books and through the speaking engagements, really talking about the dynamics of the blended family household. When I was married for 7 years. Actually, tomorrow would have been the 8th anniversary.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But was married for 7 years, and both my ex-husband and I were on WVON 1690 radio with our chat Daddy Sims. We were talking about the dynamics of a blended family household,
Okay.
which includes the finance, the other parent, religion, disciplining children, because
Yeah.
we come from different backgrounds, we
Right.
come from different walks of life. We were raised differently. So my ex-husband, was 7.5 years older, and he was raised in a household where he had both of his parents.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't. I was
Yeah.
raised
Okay.
with my mom and my grandparents. My grandparents were together. Even that was a different situation growing up because they were in separate rooms.
Yeah, that was kind of accepted.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
They were in separate rooms.
Yeah.
So it was just very different from, you carry that as you get older into
Yeah.
your adulthood
Yeah.
with how you were raised and your values and what you saw and your perspective. So it was a little bit different at the beginning, but yeah, it's a lot of talking to people about what their upbringing was and versus what their spouse's upbringing is,
Yeah.
and why they're having some differences. How even when it comes to conflict resolution skills. He was raised in a household to where my ex-husband, they didn't hear him and his sister. They didn't hear their parents arguing. I was in a household where that's all they did, like
Yeah.
with the women more so. My grandfather would
Yeah.
go in his room when he
Like,
was
let
all,
'em be.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was basically my mom and my grandmother.
That's still a message too, though.
It
That
is.
really is,
It
and
is.
it's
Yeah.
actually it's dysfunctional.
Yeah.
I had to grow up to realize this is not how, and then I had to realize how am I even how was my relationship with other women? So I had to really take a look at that
Yeah.
because that's what I knew growing up.
Yeah.
So, but those are things that you really have to dive into. Even when it comes to finances, you could have been raised in a household to where the finances were always taken care of by one parent, or you heard one parent constantly arguing with the other parent about spending too much or lights getting cut off or whatever the case. And finances were always a big struggle in the conversation.
Yeah.
So,
and that's one of the top reasons for divorce today.
Yeah,
are the
it is.
finances. So it's funny you were talking about a lot of couples stay together for their children.
yeah.
And I am not an advocate of that.
I am not
My
either.
reason for divorce was I saw the way my ex-husband and I were in the home. And I was like, my child cannot see this as his first example of what love looks like. And I had to step out on faith because I was scared to be a single parent. But it was important for him to see that. And I told him, I said, you're going to have two parents who are so much happier apart than together,
Right.
that we're going to be better parents to you. We're going to just be able to focus on our love for you as opposed to the conflict that we have with each other. And I noticed that even with being with James, because Matthew was in that kind of weird stage where children are kind of trying to see who they are, and
Yeah.
they're confused
Yeah.
about where am I supposed to be in this space. That him seeing the way James and I were together, and even more importantly, the way James was to me, has taught him something that I see it. I'm like, okay, okay, thank you. I'm just, it's a blessing.
Yeah.
I just thank
Because
God for it.
he paid attention.
Yeah, he did.
They
Because
always pay
one
attention.
time he said something once. He said, "Well, the way you guys are, you guys so and so, so and so, so." I'm like,
Yeah. And kids do that, and people don't give
And you don't
children
ro-
that respect
Oh,
that
oh
they
my God.
know.
These
You
kids-
can act
pay
like you're
attention.
good, but they know.
They may not tell you,
Right.
but they are paying attention.
Oh, yeah.
They mimic.
Yes.
They either mimic or you start to see their behavior shift, and you might not even understand what's going on. But it may be like if he was saying something to you that your son felt was disrespectful. If your son was one of those children to where he's just like, I'm just going to chill in the cup for a minute, then and then just let it grow and fester. Then it comes out in the
Yeah.
argument. Well,
Yeah.
because I don't like the way he's talking to you, and you're
Yes.
taking it, and I'm just using my mom being strong. I looked at you, vision you being way,
Yeah. Oh, that's
handling the
good.
situation a little bit different, and I don't,
Yeah.
children, kids, especially as they grow older, they pay attention.
yeah.
And it's funny.
Yeah,
I
that's
know.
a
I
good-
know of someone.
That's a good point. Go
I
ahead.
know
Beth. Go ahead.
someone who. How should I describe it? He saw his parents, who are still together, who the mom was kind of volatile, and the dad is just like whatever it takes to for her not to trip.
Right.
And so fast forward, he married someone just like that. He had the same relationship that he grew up seeing.
He went and found it.
He went. I mean, that's all he knew.
He went and found it.
That was his normal.
Yeah. And I know for me, I was always I was very creative. And although I didn't really know what I wanted, I knew I wanted something tremendous for my life. I wanted to be exceptional. It was just in me. I didn't understand that's human nature. I didn't understand that that's the reason we all gravitate to the superhero movies. That's the reason for the success of Star Wars and Star Trek and Indiana Jones, because you have this man who faces insurmountable odds and winds up the victor. We all envision ourselves as being exceptional human beings, and that is what we seek after. And I desired that. I just didn't know exactly how to go about it. It took me years to really understand who I was, to really know who I was, to know what I was capable of. I was in my 40s. I was working, making good money. I worked so many hours, I was isolated from the world. The world around me was literally changing from the industrial age to the information age. And I wasn't introduced to that world until I was 37. When a company closed, I'd been there 17 and a half years. I go out into the world, and wow, the world wasn't like this before. Before, I'm working 11 and a half hours a night, taking care of the kids. I get up, take them to school, or cook breakfast, get them to school, grocery shop, start dinner, go to sleep from 9 to 2, get up, go back to school, get the kids. My sister come over and sit with the kids while I'm at work at night. I get home, I get off 5:30 in the morning and do it all over again.
Really?
And I work Saturdays.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, and then the other days I'm at church on Sundays. So the world is passing me by and I'm not aware of the shifts and the changes that are happening. So as a consequence, I'm 37 years old. I'm going out into a world I don't know. I'm not prepared for it. So I had to reinvent myself. I had to learn about computers. Actually, I became a programmer, you know, and so because of the nature of my previous job, my mind was prepared to know how to do computer programming because that's what I did with machinery. I just didn't know it was programming. So my point is that I was in my 40s before I understood who I was, whereas my son discovered who he was in his 30s. And so hopefully his children will discover who they are in their 20s.
Yeah, I think they already know.
Yeah,
The way they act, they already
They're very
secure in who they
confident.
are. Yeah.
You know, and so I think I see it as an evolution, I guess. And like you said, we're all different. But the models that we see in front of us, if you don't have a model, it's going to take you longer. I look at kids who had great fathers, great role models, very strong people. And the influence of that role model helped them to discover who they were or to reject what they could have been,
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
you know. So I know for me, I really regret all the years it took me, but I'm here.
But I wouldn't. I don't know. I wouldn't tell you to not regret something. But there are so many people who
I shouldn't say regret.
People who leave this earth and they
don't know.
never,
Yeah,
or they
don't know.
they see the world shift, and they're not capable of shifting with the world,
Right.
and they
Yeah.
become angry and bitter.
I know people that died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know people
They
that
don't-
literally died and left this earth because they could not adapt to the
Yeah.
shift.
But
So
you know
it's a
what?
blessing to be able to shift.
Yeah.
It's not even, don't even look at it so much as that too, but as long as you are breathing, you always have the opportunity to evolve and invent yourself.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You might want to be an attorney later on. I'm not saying that that's what you're going to do
Yeah.
because just the way that you process things, that's probably not going to be a route. But you might decide to do something completely different. You might want to do something way in the same realm of what you're doing now, just on a different avenue.
Oh,
I have
oh,
a friend,
yeah.
hey Kim, in her 40s became an attorney. We were like, wait, what?
Yeah.
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 I mean, she is an attorney today.
I read
And
about a lady in her 80s that
Yeah.
went to law school because she said, I've always wanted to go
So
to
people
law school.
who
I
say
always wanted
I'm
to be an
too
attorney."
old,
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, you will be in the class with some kids, but that's not your business.
Exactly.
Your business is what you're there for.
Exactly.
I don't want her to leave, babe, without talking about bullying.
Oh yeah.
She got a whole
Okay.
nother book.
Okay, baby, hit the bullet.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let's talk about Bubbles, the
Yes.
beautiful butterfly.
Okay.
And butterflies are the only insect I won't run from. So thank you for that.
I love butterflies.
How did that come about?
Well, my nickname.
How you laughing? I'm serious.
You're funny.
I'm like, oh, butterfly. Anything else, I'm gone.
They are. It's just majestic. I love butterflies. My nickname is actually Bubbles. So that's
Oh,
where,
cute.
yeah, since a baby, when I was born, and the
I
doctors
love it.
took a picture of me, I had a spit bubble in my mouth. So my mom named me, and I still have that picture. My
my
mom
gosh.
named me Bubbles.
Oh
So-
my gosh.
But it's actually depicting my 10-year-old self when I was younger.
Wow.
So Chloe is a 10-year-old me. And
Okay.
Bubbles is the now me who's actually giving her empowerment tools and equipping her with the confidence that she needs when because I didn't get that when I was younger. You know, we were talking
Yeah.
earlier about being raised in a generation to where they just did things a little bit different
Everything
in
was
terms of
different.
survival.
Yeah.
So when I was in the 6th grade, I was bullied heavily, like every day
Wow.
coming in. And there was one person, and I was thinking about this when I was on my way to worship service this morning. One person who would kick it off, and then he had his
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 crew.
henchmen in the back, and then everyone else would start laughing. And everyone, you know, when you're younger, you don't realize you're just laughing at the joke. No one realized how when that person who is being impacted by that, what kind of influence that can have on them when they get older.
Yeah.
I just actually spoke in front of about 250, 300 people last year in Baltimore about how bullying impacts you as an adult.
It
Oh, yeah, it does.
because nobody realizes, and including your decisions that you make, the
Yes.
confidence that you build
Yes.
when you're in corporate America or when you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That all plays a part. Now, the person, the man at this point, he was, he was a little boy at the time. I actually ran into him maybe when I was in my early 20s, and his aunt went to school with my aunt. They lived right across the street from each other.
Okay. Wow.
So when I saw him, and he actually didn't remember who I was, and then when I told him what he did, he apologized, but he didn't even remember doing
Yeah.
it. And
But that's typical though.
because he's not
It
on the
is.
receiving end,
Yeah.
so he
Right.
wasn't the one
He's
who
done
was
it, he's
impacted.
gone. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but it's just basically a book about a 10-year-old girl who was getting bullied at school. She was at her wit's end. She didn't know what to do, and the butterfly had been following her around and noticed it. So the butterfly
I love
comes
this
into her
story.
room
Oh my gosh.
and actually
That's
gives
beautiful.
her all types of strategies. It told her about her story about how she was picked on and how she turned into a beautiful butterfly. She was
Where did
picked
that
on as a
idea
captain.
come from?
I guarantee you, I promise you, I made that story up in 45 minutes just based off of my experience.
That's a
being
beautiful
bullied.
story.
That
Oh
is a
my
beautiful
And so I
gosh.
just had to turn it into a children's book. But yes, this is actually based on there's an actual page in there to where she's being teased a specific word that I was teased with, and that was I was called, because I had an overbite, I was called Bucky Beaver.
Okay.
So there is an actual page in there where the teacher holds up the note that the little boy wrote that says
Yeah.
Bucky Beaver on it. Until this day, I still have trouble with the word Bucky. Like even when I
Wait,
watched
isn't there
Avengers.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
Because my
Yeah.
son is into
His name is
everything.
Bucky.
Yes.
Bucky
He's in-
Barnes.
yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when they would mention Bucky, it's just something, because it's the character, but it was something that would make me relay back to. I would just
Yeah.
remember what I was called Bucky B, and I just had to really get past it at the age of 43. Still get past the psychological impact that had on me when I was 10 years old, being called Bucky Beaver in class.
Wow.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I can relate to that. I can
Yeah,
relate
because
to
I
that.
was teased for my forehead. They said I didn't have a forehead. I had an 8 head.
Yeah, they did.
They did. And I was, you know,
I
how
was-
your body parts
yeah.
grow
Yeah, yeah,
fast. and-
everything,
So I
yeah,
had a
yeah.
big. I
Catch
still
up
have a
with
big
itself.
forehead, but
Aw.
you know, it's funny. Some of the celebrities today have big forehead. Like Tyra Banks rocked it, and I was like, oh, me too, girl. But you have these images nowadays, like we
Yeah,
were saying, that you
yeah.
didn't have back in the day.
Yeah.
And I was teased heavily for that. So,
But you know what too? The thing about bullying, the reason bullying has such an impact on us is when you have an experience with an emotion attached to it, you remember it.
Oh, yeah.
If you have an experience with no emotion attached, you don't have a story.
Right.
Because you're not emotionally invested. I can remember things that were said to me, things that were done to me when I was growing up. I remember a young lady on my block. We had just moved to our neighborhood in Inglewood, and these two girls, it was a gang on our block, and they had between them, they had 6 or 7 brothers all in the gang. So they decided they want to fight with me. So they come in the backyard, these two young ladies, and they were, come on, we heard you was talking about us. I'm like, I don't even know you. I just moved here. How am I going to talk about you? No, come on, we're gonna do this. And I thought to my lightning fast mind, I said, okay, now if I fight her and I beat her,
it's not good.
her
not
brothers
good.
are gonna come and kill
Right.
me.
Yeah.
If I fight her and I let her win,
Then you're a punk.
now I'm a punk.
Yeah.
So my third
You can't
option,
win.
my third option was, I don't fight her, and then so her cousin, who they were unrelated, everybody's your cousin.
Yeah. I got some.
So her
cousins that
cousin
ain't
comes
cousins.
along. I never will forget her, and she wants to fight instead. And I'm like, I'm not fighting you. I'm not, and you can't make me fight you.
Right.
Because if I fight you, I know your brothers are gonna get me. If I lose, man, you let a girl beat you,
Yeah.
and they're gonna jump on you every day.
Yeah.
So years later, I'm walking through the mall, southwest suburbs of Chicago. I'm walking through the mall, and there she is, the cousin. And I called her by her name. I said, you don't remember me, do you? She said, no. I said, you used to want to beat me up every day. She looked at me. She said, really?
Wow.
She looked at me, and her face was like, I might have wanted to go out with you, but I don't think I would have wanted to beat you up. I said, yeah, you used to want to beat me up every day. I live on 72nd. She did not remember me.
Wow.
because she had no emotions attached to it. I did, and so as a consequence,
But had you beat her up, she would remember.
she would have remembered.
Yeah.
Because
if I
my
beat
feelings hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's that's the danger. That's the horrible thing about bullying is the emotions attached to it that you really have to go through some transformation to rise above it. Because it's going to always be there, but you can rise above it.
But children just want to belong. Children just want to be liked.
Yeah.
For the most part. And depending on the way their home life is,
Yeah.
sometimes that's all they have is
Yeah,
school,
that's
is to
true.
feel accepted. So if you have someone bullying you, yes, there's an attachment to that because, like, I can't even. I mean, they didn't know I was crazy though, because I would just fight you. Like I was scared, and my feelings were hurt because you're teasing me, but I just hit you. So that allowed me, even on the outside, to look like I was tough. Although on the inside, like I can still remember every word that I was told negative. But my home life was like that. My dad didn't really have anything positive to say about me.
Wow.
So now I go to school, now you tease me. So yeah, it's an
Yeah,
emotion
yeah.
that's even deeper because it's mimicking what I'm getting at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this book is powerful. Are you going to write more bullying books?
But you were about to make a point.
Oh, I was going to say that I was going to make a point. When some children don't even realize that they are bullying.
Right.
They don't get it. They
They
don't
don't.
know it. They don't see it. They just know that they are, like you were saying before, they're getting that attention. Maybe they weren't getting it at home. So they
Yeah.
come to school and everybody's laughing at their jokes. So
Yeah,
that
that's
just feeds
attention.
them.
Negative attention
right.
is still attention.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
true.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
a good
that-
point.
mhm.
That's a good point.
They don't even realize
That's a
that
good point.
Yeah.
that's what they're doing. They don't even realize that they're harming or hurting someone else. And
Right.
when we were younger, we were told to ignore. That's
Yeah.
the worst thing you can tell
See,
a child.
my mama didn't say that. She said, don't start the fight, but finish. I said, I got to listen to my mama.
My mom always used to tell me to ignore. Now, my
Wow.
mom grew up in Argyle Gardens, Block 17. Now, she taught us to fight.
Yeah.
But she also taught us by us being raised a certain way with our grandparents. Just ignore. Just don't say anything. Ignore it. They'll leave you alone. That never happened.
Yeah.
Never. And it's like your parents weren't even equipped with the tools that they needed to train their children on what to do on those types of
Yeah,
situations.
you're right.
So
You're
what
right.
do you do? Let's talk about, man, this time is running out.
Oh.
What do you recommend parents do when their child is being bullied, or if you hear about your child in a way being the bullier?
Well, if your child is being bullied, there are certain signs that you can look for. If they're withdrawn, all of a sudden they don't want to go to school. They look like they're depressed or anxiety. They're not doing well in school with their grades academically. Don't want to even be engaged in extracurricular activities. That's when you need to have that conversation to figure out what's going on. If they do say, "Yeah, I'm being bullied," and sometimes they don't even like to tell their parents. They might journal it or something like that, or tell a best friend. Try to get connected with the friends. Also, go to the parents. Like, have you realized has your daughter or son mentioned anything about my daughter? Because sometimes your child is not going to tell you.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you're talking to the school. You're talking to the school, the teachers. You're talking to the principals, anyone that's staff, administration, to talk to the parents or whoever the guardians are of this other child. And it may be to where you have to separate them. Sometimes you might even have to put them into the same group so they can figure out that they actually have some commonalities and don't even realize it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I had a friend who she dropped out of school in high school because she was a big girl, and she was the sweetest person, but she got bullied so much she just dropped out of school. Period. And I thought that was terrible. It was a huge family, so I don't know how well. I mean, I was a child too, so I don't know how well her parents were equipped to help her with that. But she dropped out of school. And the sad thing about today is that more children are opting to commit suicide or bring guns to school because that's the only thing they know that can stop this person from bullying me.
them. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
And what's sad is that the media promotes these events, and when people copycat, there are things people have done, and it's a rash of killings.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a rash if y'all didn't sensationalize it.
Yeah.
Say, "Ooh, that's a good idea. I think I'm going to do that."
Yeah, because when we fought as children, we fought. We fought, we got over, we kept it
you go
going.
home. Now
Now you can die. You can be killed because of that.
And and I believe in part, not all, but it's got a lot to do with some of the movies, in the news.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Perpetuating.
It's perpetuating the idea
Yeah.
and minimizing the value of a human life. And it's sad because there are a few people who are, there's some that probably bully and they don't realize, but there are others, they are predators. Even at a young age, I've dealt with some that they were just predators. They just wanted to do harm to somebody.
See, I
I
think
heard
that comes
people
from
hurt
their
people.
environment. Right,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
People who are probably bullied
They probably
somewhere
Like
else
these
in
are,
their
those
life.
are all types of social dynamics and psychological dynamics that need counseling and all kinds of special professionals
Well,
to get in
that's
to
what
get through
happens.
those
Therapy
layers.
works, people.
That's what
Please go
happens.
get
That's what
therapy.
happens when you have perpetual generational poverty.
Yeah.
There's behaviors that
And
are.
poverty is not just financial.
Right.
I'm not talking money.
No, I just want people to know that's not just financial.
No. Poverty has to do with an absence or the presence of negativity and the absence of a positive mindset about yourself and about life. Because poverty means to be without. It means to be deprived. There are people who probably have, decent incomes, but they have a poverty mindset.
Yes.
And they believe in stealing, they will manipulate, they will act like there's no I gotta take this.
No
'cause
consequences.
there's no more. This is the last
Yeah.
one in the whole
Yeah.
world. That's a poverty mindset. So it's not so much about how much money you make, although that's a part of it. It's who you feel, how do you see yourself? And that's part of the thing I've learned that I want to do with my life. I worked in the mortgage lending industry for like 20 years, almost 20 years. And I gave that up to write and to, in an effort to want to reach people and teach people about transformation, about how to adapt to change, because I had to adapt to change as a child. I had to adapt to change as an adult a couple of times. So I had to reinvent myself and adapt and then learn to prosper in that shift. And so I realized that there is a massive number of people who are in a place of maybe a dark place because they don't see a way out. They don't see a light. They don't have the hope. And a lot of people, back in the day, everybody went to church. A lot of people went to church. Now, churches have become, in some people's minds, irrelevant.
We're running out of time, babe.
Are
I don't
we?
want people to not.
Oh, my
Aria,
gosh.
you got 30 seconds. How do we get in touch
How do we
with
get in
you?
touch with you?
You can go to my website, ariacraig.com.
That's ARIA Craig.
Yes, ARICRAIG, or you can email me at aria@ariacraig.com. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
That's Aria Craig.
Aria Craig.
Your books are on Amazon.
My books are on my website and Amazon.
Bubbles, The Beautiful Butterfly,
Yes.
and The Bully That Chloe Conquers, and Single Mother Diaries, Volumes 1 and 2. Thank you so much for
Yeah, thanks for
blessing us
coming
with this.
on.
Was a great conversation and great and important topics that you touch upon. So thank you for the work that you do.
As you can see, there are things that are very sensitive to people that have been bullied. You've been bullied. I've been bullied. Wendy's been bullied. There's so many people whose lives could have been just decimated because of that. But we were just blessed to come out of it, But until next week, I'm James H. Carpenter Barnes, and I'm here with
Wendy B.
And we will be back next week, 6 o'clock p.m. on the Artist First Radio Network. We're looking forward to seeing you then. Until then, allow God's grace to continue to flow in your life as a mighty river.
Be blessed, everyone. Bye. Hi, this is Wendy, and welcome to The Wendy Life. We are celebrating some unsung champions in our community, the disabled community. I have been a mom of disabled children for 21 years, and I look to bring light to this community. We are going to talk to and celebrate therapists, teachers, doctors in this community. We're going to talk to the special needs community themselves. People who are rocking out this life despite their disability, showing us how to live our best lives no matter what life throws at us.
The Wendy Life. New episodes every second and fourth Friday on the Road to Eternity channel.
Thanks for listening to JW Fusion with your hosts, James and Wendy B.